Good evening. My name is Mick Buchanan, Director of the Los Angeles Chess Club. Welcome to our Tuesday night advanced lecture. This is the month of March 2017, and we talk about tactics this month. So I'll show some games that are interested in tactics. Last week we showed some games from World Champions. One great game, Kasparov against Karpov. It's another video if you'd like to watch it. Tonight we see another great player's game, and that guy is me. Well, more or less. So in 2008, as part of the LA Masters tournament at the club, I beat two Japanese masters back in back on August 2nd, both of them same day, as part of the rounds 3 and 2 of the LA Masters tournament. So tonight I'll be showing you guys those two games. In one game I was white. I played my favorite knight f3 on the first move. Good flexible move. You don't show your hands as to which pawns you want to put in the center. And if you have some years of experience behind you, you will make some right pawns at the right time. So black played c5. For Sicilian players, no matter what white does almost on the first move, c5 is always a good response. And now I play c4. So for now, we have what's called symmetrical English. He played g6. As you know, in English opening, the strategic idea for white is to control the light squares, and for black to control the dark squares, just like these pawns do. And of course, you reinforce that by fianchettoing bishop on dark squares, and white sometimes fianchetters the bishop, bearing down on the light squares eventually along this diagonal. So, but for now, both sides mind their own business, just getting the pieces developed. White is going for a g3 system, bishop g7, bishop g2, and knight c6. You see that strategy beautifully shown so far. Now, there are two ways to go about continuing the game. Either white continues with his light square strategy and controlling light squares, occupying and controlling, or he may challenge black on black's strength, which is dark square, which is e3 and d4.
Wait, when he does that, well, not d3 and the e4,
doesn't
that kind of block your light square bishop?
Temporarily. I hear that from a lot of beginners, novices.
Wow, right?
It's temporary. This pawn eventually will move by black playing d5 or f5. And eventually, even if black doesn't, this pawn stays here, white just removes the knight, plays f4, f5 at some point. This, by the way, is famous as Botvinnik pawn formation, because Botvinnik used this setup quite often as white or black.
I'm using black before.
So what did I do here?
E3?
Knight c3. Another flexible move. Knight almost always goes here, and this is an English opening now. By definition, this is English. Black played e5. Okay, now this changes the character of the game. One reason black hasn't developed the king bishop yet is because chances are he wants to bring it to e7, and he doesn't want the knight blockading this. This is probably the most optimal setup for black. So I'm playing against the setup, but since I played knight f3 on the first move, I don't have that option. Knight is here blockading this bishop for the time being.
Unless you want to lose a tempo.
So after e5, white to play castles, and black sure enough played knight g7. Knight e7, knight g7.
Oh.
When you have two knights going to the same square, you got to identify which is which. So I played e4, black played d6, white played d3. So both players have played what's called Botvinnik pawn formation. It's a very good setup. Botvinnik himself played this quite often and eventually became world champion with it. Very powerful setup. So after d3, black castled, and we have a completely symmetrical position except
For the knight on f3?
for the position of these knights. So who does it favor?
Black.
Slightly for black,
Oh,
because black doesn't have to, he can have f5 down right now. White to play, usually in positions like this, because this bishop diagonal is closed, white expands on the queen side, a3, b4, rook b1. So let's start playing that a3. In English Open, white could try to expand on the queen side, or in the center, which is not the case in this case, or on the king side. But I decided to go, because this knight is here, I can expand on this side of the board, but on the queen side I can. But he played f5. So he's expanding on the queen side of king side of the board.
Doesn't that free your bishop up?
Which bishop?
The light square bishop.
Right, but of course if I take, I have to count on 1, 2, 3, 4 ways of recapture by black. Each recapture with different piece has its advantage and disadvantage. But I don't have to do anything. My strength is on the queen side, so I should invest on this side of the board. Rook b1.
Did he push?
Pushing was possible, but what's the follow-up after this push? Then what is he trying to do? This trade helps me because his f pawn got traded with my h pawn, right? So yes, that was a possibility, but he didn't do it.
Did you play b6?
What did he play? He played knight d4. When you have two knights and one great outpost, you put one knight here and another one to reinforce it. Knight d4, white to play. Now I traded pawns, because at any time I could take here, I'll take here and take here, and all of a sudden my bishop diagonal is open. So I played pawn takes pawn. Now he has 5 ways of recapture. Which way did he capture? Like I said, each one has its advantage and disadvantage. When I'm black in these positions, I usually capture with the g pawn, and then this knight here, and then f4. Of course, I give him the square, but this is the only way for black to break through around this file and open this diagonal. Question?
He took with the e7 knight?
He took with the bishop. He figured knight's already moved. Bishop is the only piece that is not out yet. Okay, what's the only disadvantage of this bishop capture?
g4.
No, b7.
b7 is undefended, and on knight h4, what should he do?
Let's take a look.
Leave it.
C7.
What is it?
Queen c7.
On queen c7, I take his bishop for my knight. That favors me.
Bishop c8 is bad.
Oh, well, let's see.
Queen c8 was also possible. If I take, you take back with either piece, or if I don't take, bishop h3 next. So the correct move was queen, either bishop back to c8, which is not as great,
Queen d7.
or queen d7 or queen c8, right?
I say d7.
Right, d7 was also good, yes. Instead, he played bishop e6. So would you say this is a blunder, or does he deliberately sacrificing the b7 pawn?
I think so.
He will get some play, because, for example, bishop b7, rook b8, bishop back, knight b here. And that knight is really crippling me. Later on, he can play another knight here, and he will have a powerful bind over here. So he had this opportunity, but I figured a pawn is a pawn, so I'll take it. It's up to him to prove that this was deliberate, or if he overlooked it, make something out of it. Sure enough, rook b8, bishop back to g2, and to my surprise, I was really expecting knight here.
He didn't play.
Instead, of course, had he played this knight here, I would have played knight here and knight here, challenging it.
Or knight e4.
Or knight e4. Instead, he played queen d7. Now I'm just a full pawn ahead, and he has no compensation. Queen d7. So what should white do? b4 was the correct move. Instead, I played the second best move, bishop e3.
We are not.
It's a good developing move, and there's nothing wrong with this except one problem. He still could play knight here, and that would have stopped me on expanding on this side of the board.
Did he play it?
On bishop e3, he played bishop g4. What is the point of this move?
Well, it's to tempo control the queen, so the queen only has one good square, it seems like.
Well, it's E1 or C1.
What if I play f3?
If you play f3, then bishop h3.
Right. But with bishop h3 and these bishops getting traded, I don't mind having a pawn on f3. So I did play f3, and I figured this bishop's going to get traded. I don't have to worry about the scope of this bishop anymore. This bishop pretty much had his career already. He stole a pawn, and now he's ready to be traded, right? So I played bishop h3, and I said, great. I'm waiting for you to trade. I'm playing b4, expanding on that side of the board.
And stopping knight b3 permanent.
Sure enough, he played bishop takes g2, and how should white recapture?
With the knight.
With the knight, I did. Knight takes, black to play, c takes b4, a takes b4.
Isn't that a slight
As a result of this trade, his c pawn got traded with my a pawn, right? Now, as he has a backward pawn here, he has an isolated pawn here. These are weaknesses. But it takes some time to prove it. Now he played d5. Nice breakthrough in the center. What should white do?
Push.
Push would be ideal, but there's a problem, tactical problem with it. On push, he plays knight takes f3, followed by d4, forking my pieces.
Oh, mamma mia.
So, what does white want when he's a whole pawn ahead?
Get the pawn away.
Trade everything. So I played pawn takes. He played knight takes. Before I take that knight, I wanted to make sure he ends up with a pawn in here. This is the outpost for black.
So bishop takes.
Bishop takes knight first. Right?
But he can ignore that and tempo your queen.
How?
Oh, then he loses a piece.
Then bishop will come back. So he has to capture. You see now, there's this pawn that is hindering his bishop scope along this diagonal. That is a bad bishop, guys. So let's go for wholesome trade. Knight takes knight,
you lose pawn.
queen takes, queen b3. Force trading queens also.
Sure.
Why didn't
Nice.
you play queen b3 at first?
At what point first?
Before knight takes. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. So, queen b3. No, I'm sorry. I got a tempo on the queen first. I'll play knight f4 first. Move the queen away. He went to queen d7. Then queen b3 check. And he played king h8.
Now knight e6.
Knight at e6. I'd be happy to trade this knight for that bishop. And he played rook fc8. So he's got some serious ideas in mind.
So did you take g7?
This is where you have a good move, then you look again and you see a better one.
Rook fc1?
Knight g5.
Oh, knight
I
g5.
was thinking that, but I don't see why it's good.
Oh, you have a discovered check. You're threatening the queen.
Right. I'm threatening knight check, king g8, knight e5, discovered check. So what should he do?
Push h6. He's got an escape square.
He didn't see that as a serious threat, so he played queen e7 on the knight.
Rook e1.
No, the knight falls.
This was a mistake, tactical mistake. What's wrong with this?
You can win in exchange.
Yes.
Knight f7 check.
Knight f7 check, king g8, knight d6, discovered check. And with a pawn up and exchange ahead, that's 3 points. But he started some nice counterattack. He played king h8, I played knight c8, he played rook c8. And now I got to make sure about this queen penetration. Queen check here.
So did you play rook on f to e1?
Queen e1 exclam, queen d1 exclam.
Why is that a good move?
Because I need to regroup my pieces. Because I'm planning to play rook here next. So on queen d1, he played h5. He's hoping for h4 and all that. And now control one of the two open files, rook e1, driving the queen away. He played queen g5. He's dreaming of creating some accidents around my king side right now. But with a full exchange and a pawn, yes, my rooks are not active. All my majors in the first row, all my pieces actually in the first row.
Except for the pawns.
Right. So after queen g5, it's white to play. And what does white should do? Trade. Rook c1. Challenge his rook on the open file. Of course, he can't afford to trade, so he played rook b8, and the game is over in a few moves. What's the best move now?
Rook on c to c7.
Rook c5.
c5 first.
This is an example of distraction. Go away, queen, from the good square that you're in.
El Burrito.
So played queen to d8. Okay, so there's a pawn hanging over here. What should white do? Is it worth defending?
No.
Or do you have something better?
Queen b3.
Queen b3 was the regular move I could have played, but it seems that queen c2 or queen a4 are better.
So queen a4?
Queen c2, and he cannot play rook takes because of rook c8. Queen c, with queen here, I defend the pawn and attack this pawn next. And this game is pretty much over. And he made a double question mark move. Who would be the best qualified person to find a double question mark?
So the
Okay. No, he still owns the title.
A
So.
double question mark move.
Well, there are several, but
Rook to
Queen.
c8.
close enough. Rook c8 is not as bad. Actually, it is bad. Rook takes, queen takes, rook check. But he played rook b7.
okay, wait, what?
Right, double question mark.
Also rook now e8.
There you go.
What is
So.
life like?
Did he resign?
So how did the game continue? His opening was fine. It was actually slightly better than mine, his opening setup, because the knight g7 rather than f6. But he mishandled the game later on. Tactically, actually.
You have algo.
Okay, so we have another game against another Japanese master. The last one was Kurosaki, Takashi Kurosaki, one of the Los Angeles masters.